Okay, hello, Jacqueline, Amy, Constance, and Molly. My name is Kyle, and I'm just going to try and do a video response to Module 2. So first off, the first question, what surprised or troubled you about the history of assessment? Took a few notes from that PowerPoint, and a few things that I was taken aback by from the history of assessment was first thing from slide 4. Talked more about the psychological measurement and eugenics. So I went to the Wikipedia page on eugenics, and I learned that it is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population by excluding, through a variety of morally criticized means, certain genetic groups judged to be inferior and promoting other genetic groups judged to be superior. So that struck me and kind of took me aback and surprised me a bit. I didn't read too much more into it, but it's something I want to kind of research a little bit more, as I found it quite interesting that was going on. It looked like back in the 1800s. Also, moving into slide 14, I took some notes on craniometry. I was really shocked that measuring the physical structure of the cranium was at one time a way to study intelligence. Moving forward into the 19th century school reform, I took some notes about that single geometry paper was given to 116 teachers for grading, and marks ranged from 28 to 92. So, and answer keys at that time were not common practice. Moving forward into World War I and mass testing, I took a few notes that World War I sparked mass testing, and they tested troops before they went into the war, and after the war, requests flooded in for similar style tests in schools and into the workplace, I believe. So I found that to be interesting. And I think that was kind of all I took notes for from the history of assessment. So I'm looking forward to reading or seeing more of your thoughts on what you took from that PowerPoint. There was a lot of information in there, so I didn't want to go too deeply into it just now. So I'll go into question number 2. Building on the reflection questions from the beginning of the module, share the following. Consider one assessment that you have personally experienced. So one assessment that I have quite a bit of experience with as a student, as a learner, is the Japanese language proficiency test. I've taken it numerous times. A little background on that test: it is the official worldwide test that intends to measure a non-native Japanese speaker level of proficiency in Japanese. And the test is broken up into 5 levels, 5 being the easiest, 1 being the most difficult, and you just work your way through those levels as you progress. So I have taken level 4. I passed it my first time, then I moved on to level 3. It took me 2 times to pass it, and I barely passed it. And then I moved up to level 2. That I took 6 times, and I finally passed it last year on my 6th time. So that was kind of was one of my main goals, because passing level 2 is kind of the stepping stone into, if you want to get a job for a Japanese company, they look at that on your resume. A lot of companies require you to at least have a level 2, and that kind of shows that you are able to read a lot of the Chinese characters, and maybe read emails, answer the phone, and have some sort of maybe a little deeper understanding of communication in Japanese. So just the extent to which this test is fair and unbiased is that it measures, I feel, a learner's ability based on vocabulary recognition, its use in certain contexts. There's a big portion of the test that deals with syntax. There's a reading comprehension, and then there's a listening section. So the test is completely multiple choice, and certain sections, such as the vocabulary recognition, which are the Chinese characters, I think is a good assessment because it really, you have to know it. You have to know it. There's no guessing. It's like you have to recognize the character and how it is read. And I also find that the listening section is fair too, as you have to comprehend what you hear and then answer it correctly. So while I do think it is a good test and one that has really no room for interpretation grading wise, as it is all multiple choice, I think it does lack that one key element of language proficiency, which is communication. So I do not believe it can fairly assess a Japanese learner's degree of proficiency without actually having the test taker put the language to use in a real life context. I also think guessing can be a factor on some of the reading comprehension, and also if the test taker is not familiar with some of the topics in the longer reading comprehension sections, you can completely miss a section, whereas if you kind of get lucky and you know all the topics, or you're familiar with certain topics, you're able to perhaps pass the test that way. So I think I answered all the questions. So it intends to measure your Japanese language proficiency. And then I'm kind of half and half on does it valid reflection of your learning, and I think I explained all that. So yeah, I'll end this video there, and all the best as we continue to cruise through this module, and I look forward to reading and hearing your responses. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.